The first time I realized my son no longer saw me as his father, but as free property. It came in one sentence: Thanksgiving is at Dad's this year. 31 people, he knows how to handle it. I was sitting alone at my kitchen table, staring at a plane ticket to Dublin and the walnut carving board my late wife bought me when we had nothing. Before I could even breathe, my daughter-in-law sent a seating chart and asked me not to use that old scratched-up board because it would ruin the photos. Nobody asked if I wanted guests. Nobody asked if I would be home. They just assumed the old man would unlock the door. This time, he wouldn't. My phone kept buzzing like a tool I had forgotten to unplug. By 9:30, the family chat had turned into a schedule for a job nobody had hired me to run. Brooke asked if I had the folding table in the garage. My nephew wanted to know whether the driveway could hold 8 cars if people parked tight. Travis's cousin asked if I was making the gravy from scratch, the way Mom liked it, as if naming my dead wife made the request respectful. Someone else wanted to bring their dog. Another asked if the den couch pulled out, because hotels near Pittsburgh were insane. Nobody typed, "Hank, is this okay?" Nobody asked if my knees could handle carrying chairs up from the basement. Nobody asked whether I wanted 31 people using Helen's bathroom towels, sleeping under Helen's quilts, leaning coats across the bed where she had spent her last winter. I set the phone face down and washed my coffee mug, slowly, carefully. The mug was already clean, but I kept the sponge moving around the rim because a man needs something to do with his hands when anger starts looking for a way out. Then Travis called. "Morning, Dad," he said, cheerful in that practiced way people sound when they are calling to confirm something they decided. "I saw the messages," I said. "Good. Brooke's trying to get ahead of everything. She just wants to make it easier on everybody." Easier. I looked around my kitchen. I saw the floor I would mop, the counters I would clear, the refrigerator I would pack until the shelves bowed. I saw the garage I would open, the smoker I would clean, the chairs I would drag out one by one. I saw myself standing at the sink after midnight, while other people loosened their belts and called the day beautiful. "That's considerate," I said. He missed the weight in my voice completely. "Exactly. If we keep it at your place, nobody has to reinvent anything. You know the setup." I looked at Helen's carving board again. The knife marks were still there, thin pale lines crossing the walnut like weathered roads. That was when I understood the shape of it. I was not being included in a plan. I was the plan. And my son, the boy I had once carried on my shoulders, had forgotten there was a man behind the word Dad. My name is Harold Mercer. Though most people call me Hank, I was 74 that November. Old enough to know the difference between being respected and being humored. I had spent 38 years teaching woodshop at a high school outside Pittsburgh, showing boys and girls how to measure twice, cut once, and keep all 10 fingers where God put them. I believed in solid joints, clean edges, and saying what you meant without dressing it up too much. Helen and I bought that house in 1982. It had 3 bedrooms, a stubborn furnace, and a backyard that turned to mud every spring. The garage roof leaked the first winter, and the kitchen cabinets hung crooked, but Helen walked through the place with her hand on my arm and said, "This one feels like us." So we made it ours. I fixed the porch steps. She planted marigolds under the front window. I built shelves in the laundry room, then a workbench in the garage, then the oak dining table that still sat under the brass light she picked out at a yard sale. I built that table over one long July while Travis was small enough to sit on a paint bucket and hand me screws like he was my assistant. When I finished it, Helen ran her palm across the top and said, "That ought to hold a family for a long time." It did. Thanksgiving in that house used to start before sunrise. Helen would tie her robe tight and pad into the kitchen while I checked the turkey and pretended I was in charge of more than the carving knife. Travis would come down in socks, hair sticking up, asking when his cousins were coming. By noon, the windows would steam, the hallway would smell like sage, and my garage would be full of men standing around the heater pretending they were helping. After dinner, Helen always made me carve one extra slice and put it on her plate, even when she swore she was full. She said holidays were not about being hungry. They were about remembering you had somewhere to sit. Dublin had been her dream. For our 40th anniversary, she bought a guidebook and circled pubs with live fiddle music, old churches, and a walking path near the water. I teased her that I did not know what a man like me would do in Ireland, without a lawn to mow or a hinge to fix. "You'll learn," she said. "For once, nobody will ask you to carry anything." Then, Travis's company nearly folded. There were payroll problems, a truck repair, a baby girl on the way, and my son sitting in my garage with his face in his hands. Helen and I postponed the trip. We told each other we had time. Then Helen got sick. After she died, Thanksgiving kept coming like a bill in the mail. Same table, same house, same expectations, only the woman who made it feel like love was gone. And somehow, the tradition we had built together became something my family thought I was required to provide. After Helen died, Travis started calling more often. And at first I was grateful for it. A house built for 2 people can sound enormous when one chair stays empty. Some evenings I would stand in the kitchen with the television on low, just to hear another voice. So when my son called, I answered every time. At the beginning, he only checked in. "How are you holding up, Dad? Need anything from town? Want me to stop by Sunday?" Those calls felt like a rope tossed across a dark room. I grabbed it because I was lonely, and because a father likes believing his grown son still looks back. Then, the rope started pulling. "Dad, can we store a few boxes in your garage for a month? Dad, Ava's school is closed Friday. Could you keep her until Brooke gets off work? Dad, I hate asking, but the van needs a transmission, and payroll is tight." I said yes more than I should have. I told myself that was what fathers did. You help your children before they have to beg. You make the check sound like a loan, even when you know you will never see the money again. You clear a corner in your garage. You cancel your own appointment. You tell yourself sacrifice feels better when nobody notices it. But kindness changes shape when people stop recognizing it as kindness. Travis was not evil. I have to say that, because truth matters even when it does not make anybody look clean. He was tired. His HVAC business had never become the success he described. He had trucks with repairs, employees who needed checks, and a wife who wanted their life to photograph better than it paid. Shame sat on him like a wet coat. When a man feels small in his own house, sometimes he reaches for authority in someone else's. The key came next. "Dad, I should have the spare," he said one afternoon. "Just in case something happens. You're all alone." I did not like the way alone sounded in his mouth, but I handed it over. I thought it meant concern. A week later, I came home from the hardware store and found him in my garage, moving paint cans off my workbench so he could stack Brooke's Christmas bins. "Didn't know you were coming," I said. He smiled without looking guilty. "I just used the key. Figured it was easier." After that, Brooke began fixing things that were not broken. She replaced Helen's yellow kitchen curtains with white ones while I was outside cleaning gutters. She rearranged the pantry because my system didn't make sense. She said the hallway photos made the house feel dated, especially the one of Helen laughing with flour on her cheek. Brooke was not a cartoon villain. She brought casseroles after funerals. She remembered birthdays. She called me Hank instead of Dad. Like that proved she respected boundaries. But she had a way of improving a room until the person who loved it disappeared. Slowly, my house became a place everyone had plans for. My garage held other people's boxes. My guest room had other people's expectations. My dining room wall became a photography problem. And I kept opening the door, because I thought keeping peace was the same as keeping family. It wasn't. That walnut carving board was never just a board to me. I know how that sounds. At 74, a man learns that younger people can look at old things and see only what they want to throw away. A dark piece of walnut with knife marks across it becomes something that ruins photographs. But that board had been under my hands through every good year of my marriage. Helen bought it the fall after I built the dining table. We were not broke exactly, but every extra dollar had a job before it arrived. The mortgage was new, the furnace needed work, Travis needed winter boots, and Helen had started cutting my hair in the kitchen because $12 felt like money we could use elsewhere. We had stopped at a little craft fair outside a church after Sunday service. I picked up the walnut board without meaning to. It was heavy, dark, smooth at the edges. I turned it over once and put it back. Helen saw me that evening, after Travis was asleep. She came into the garage holding the board against her chest. "Don't start," she said. "Helen, it was $32. Hank, We will survive. I should have scolded her. I tried to. But she was smiling. And when Helen smiled like that, a man could forget every unpaid bill on the refrigerator. From then on, that board came out every Thanksgiving. I carved turkey on it, sliced ham on it, cut bread on it when the table was too crowded. Helen used to stand beside me with a dish towel over one shoulder and say, "Careful, you're making it look like surgery." I would tell her good work required patience. She would roll her eyes and steal the first piece of skin. After she died, I kept using it because some objects remember the people we cannot bring back. The board remembered her hand on my arm. It remembered Travis begging for the drumstick. It remembered the years when my house was loud because it was loved, not because people assumed it belonged to them. So when Brooke called it old and scratched up, it hit me harder than I wanted to admit. She was not trying to stab me. That almost made it worse. Cruelty is easier to understand when it has teeth. Brooks came wrapped in linen napkins and photo ideas. I had just placed the board flat on the counter when my phone buzzed again. Brooke had sent a file, not a message. A file. At the top, in neat, bold letters, it said, "Thanksgiving layout." Not invitation, not proposal, layout. I opened it. There was a seating chart color-coded by family group. My dining room table was drawn like a rectangle on blueprints, names placed around it with little notes about sightlines. She had marked the window where the afternoon light came in. Like my home was a rented studio. Move sideboard to garage, use rented white plates, put coats in Hank's bedroom, clear workbench for dessert overflow, remove framed photos from wall for cleaner background. I read that line twice. Those photos were not background. They were Helen holding Ava as a baby, Travis in his Little League uniform, my father in his Navy cap, standing on the porch the year before he died, Helen in the kitchen, laughing with flour on her cheek. Brooke did not see a family wall. She saw clutter behind her pictures. Then came the shopping list. 2 turkeys, 12 pounds of potatoes, green beans, rolls, cider, pies, coffee. Half and half, charcoal, ice, containers, trash bags, paper towels, plastic wrap, extra toilet paper. At the bottom Hank. Maybe start early so it doesn't pile up on you. As if handing a man a longer list in a gentler font made it kindness. I was still looking at the words when Travis called. "Did Brooke send the plan?" he asked. "She did." "Good. She's trying to take some pressure off you." I looked at the list that somehow made me responsible for almost everything and said, "I can see she worked hard on it." "That's Brooke," he said. "She likes things done right." There was a pause. "The kind that comes before a request." "And after dinner," he said, "I thought maybe you and I could talk through some future planning." "Future planning? Nothing heavy. Just emergency paperwork, house stuff, medical things. Since everyone will already be there, it might be good to have support. Everyone, family, dad, people who care about you." I looked at Helen's carving board. The old knife marks crossed the walnut in pale lines. Some were too shallow to matter. Some went deep enough that even sanding would not erase them. Then Travis said the sentence that stayed in my chest. "You're not getting younger, Dad. We don't want the house becoming a burden." The house, not my house. The house. I knew some part of my son was scared. He had payroll due, trucks that needed repairs, a daughter talking about college, and a life that looked sturdier from the outside than it felt. But fear does not give a grown man the right to treat his father like a problem to be transferred. I told Travis I had something on the stove and needed to go. That was a lie. The stove was cold. So was I. After I hung up, I stayed at the kitchen table with the phone still in my hand. The house was quiet in a way I had once thought I wanted. No television. No footsteps upstairs. No Helen humming from the laundry room. Only the refrigerator clicking on, and the old wall clock above the pantry dragging its hands 5 minutes slow. Because Helen said punctual clocks made a home feel bossy. I got up because sitting there felt dangerous. A man can sit too long with anger and mistake it for a plan. In the den, I opened the bottom drawer of Helen's old desk. It still smelled faintly of paper, lavender hand cream, and cedar blocks. Under tax records and a stack of birthday cards was the Dublin guidebook. The cover had faded at the corners. Helen's handwriting filled the margins in blue ink. She had circled a pub with live fiddle music, a bookshop near Trinity College, and a walking path along the water. Beside one restaurant she had written, "Hank will complain, then love it." I sat down before my knees decided for me. Tucked inside the book was the anniversary card she had given me the year we meant to go. I had not read it since the funeral because some things feel less like memories than doors you are not strong enough to open. This time, I opened it. "To my stubborn man," she had written, "who has spent his whole life fixing what everyone else breaks. One day, I am taking you somewhere nobody asks you to repair, carry, carve, or pay for anything." I pressed my thumb against the ink until it blurred under my eyes. We had canceled that trip because Travis needed help. His business was failing. Brooke was pregnant with Ava. And my son had sat in my garage with both hands over his face, whispering that he did not know how to tell his wife. Helen had looked at me across the kitchen table. We did not even need to discuss it. We sold the tickets. I wrote the check. She put the guidebook away. "Next year," I told her. But next year became tests, then surgeries. Then a recliner moved into the bedroom because stairs hurt too much. Then pill bottles lined the windowsill. Then I was holding her hand in a hospital room, while the world outside kept behaving like ordinary people still had plans. After Helen died, I kept giving. Money when Travis was short, time when Ava needed watching, tools when his crew lost theirs, my garage, my holidays, my back, my silence. I had called it being a father. Maybe some of it was, but not all of it. Being needed can make a man feel useful, and useful can almost feel like loved, if he is tired enough. That was a trap I had walked into, one yes at a time. They did not have to break down my door. I had kept opening it before they knocked. I wiped my face with the heel of my hand because I was done sitting still. I opened my laptop and pulled up the airline page I had looked at 3 nights in a row. Pittsburgh to Dublin. 1 seat left at a price that still made my stomach tighten. For a minute, I heard Travis's voice. Payroll, repairs, college, family. Then, I heard Helen. "You'll learn." My hand shook when I clicked confirm. Afterward, nothing dramatic happened. No thunder, no music, just a quiet room. An old man. But inside my chest, something unlocked. The next morning, I called an elder law attorney named Nora Whitcomb. Her office sat above a bakery on Carson Street, up a flight of narrow stairs that made my left knee complain. The brass plate on her door was polished, but the waiting room was plain: 2 chairs, a coffee machine, and a framed photograph of the Allegheny River in winter. I had written her number down months earlier after Mr. Salazar, my neighbor, told me his sister had used her. "Don't wait until your kids start calling decisions concern," he had said. At the time, I thought he was being dramatic. Now I understood he had only been early. Nora was younger than I expected, maybe in her late 40s, with gray at her temples and a voice that did not soften around me. She shook my hand firmly and said, "Tell me what you need protected, not what happened. Not what are you worried about, what you need protected." That question went straight through me. I told her about the key, about Travis using my garage as storage because it was easier, about Brooke moving things in my kitchen and treating Helen's photographs like bad decorations. I told her about Thanksgiving, the 31 people, the seating chart, and Travis wanting to talk about house paperwork after dinner, with the family already sitting there as an audience. Nora listened without interrupting. She wrote only a few notes. When I finished, she said, "Do you feel confused about your wishes?" "No." "Do you feel unable to manage your home?" "No." "Then, we are not talking about incapacity," she said. "We are talking about pressure." I had not known how badly I needed someone to name it. We reviewed my deed first. The house was still solely in my name, the way Helen and I had arranged it before she passed. Travis was not on the title. Brooke had no claim at all. Then we looked through my will, my bank contacts, my medical directive, and an old power of attorney I had signed during Helen's second surgery. Back when everybody was afraid and papers were flying across hospital desks, Travis's name was still there. Nora tapped the page with her pen. "This does not give him ownership, but, in certain circumstances, it gives him authority. If you no longer want that, we revoke it properly." Properly mattered. I did not want a shouting match in my kitchen. I wanted a line no one could pretend not to see. By noon, I had signed the revocation. I updated my medical directive. I named a professional fiduciary as backup until I decided otherwise. Nora prepared a written notice stating that no one had permission to enter, use, or host anything in my home without my direct consent. She handed me copies in a blue folder. On the sidewalk outside, I stood with that folder under my arm and breathed cold air. For years, I had protected everyone else's emergencies. Now my signature was protecting me. It felt strange. Selfish. Until I remembered no one had felt selfish assigning me work in the house Helen left behind. For the next few days, the Thanksgiving messages kept arriving. But I stopped treating every buzz like a command. Brooke asked whether I had called the rental company about extra chairs. I left it unread. Travis asked if I had bought charcoal and heavy-duty trash bags. I wrote back, not yet. A cousin wanted to know if her boys could sleep in my den, because hotel prices were robbery. I set the phone down and went outside to rake leaves. That was new for me. I had spent most of my life answering quickly, fixing quickly, making sure nobody had to sit too long with discomfort. A man can mistake usefulness for dignity until he notices people only call when something needs lifting. On Wednesday afternoon, I changed the locks. The locksmith was a young fellow with a Steelers cap and oil under his fingernails. He replaced the front deadbolt, reset the side door, and installed a new keypad on the garage entrance. I stood beside him while he worked, not because I did not trust him, but because watching old access disappear felt important. When he handed me the new keys, they looked ordinary. They were not. An hour later, Travis called. "Dad, did you change the garage code?" I did. "Why?" "For safety." A short laugh came through the phone. "Safety from who? I'm your son. I know who you are, Travis." The silence after that had weight. "I stopped by to check the folding tables," he said. "The old code didn't work." "I know. You should have told me." I looked through the kitchen window at the garage, where Helen's gardening gloves still hung on a nail beside my workbench. For years, that space had been entered like a shared storage unit. Boxes came in, tools went out. Decisions happened while I was expected to be grateful someone had bothered to involve me after. "It is my garage," I said. "Dad, you're acting strange." Maybe I was. Maybe a man looks strange when he stops being convenient. I did not argue. I did not explain the lawyer, the revoked papers, or the folder sitting in my desk drawer. I let him hear only the locked door. A key is small until someone believes it gives them ownership. Then, it is not a key anymore. It is permission you never meant to give and should have taken back. 2 nights after the locks changed, I was in the laundry room folding towels when my phone chimed. It was Ava. My granddaughter was 17 then, old enough to notice tension at a table, young enough to believe adults eventually explain themselves. Her message said, "Grandpa, I'm sorry. I think I sent that to the wrong person." Under it was part of a thread. Brooke's name sat at the top. Travis's replies were beneath hers. At first, I thought it was another round of Thanksgiving logistics. More plates, more chairs, more instructions disguised as help. Then, I saw my name. Then, I saw the word house. I sat down on the bench beside the dryer. Brooke had written, "We need to talk to him when everyone is there. If you do it alone, he'll shut down and say he needs time." Travis replied, "I know. After dinner is best." Brooke wrote, "Make it about protecting him, not taking anything." My hands went still on the towel. Then Travis answered, "Dad won't make a scene on Thanksgiving." I read that line once, then again, slower. It did not say, "Dad might need help." It did not say, "Let's ask him what he wants." It said they had measured me, my silence, my manners, my grief, the old habit I had of keeping my voice low so nobody else had to feel ashamed. They were counting on the table Helen loved, the relatives watching, the holiday pressure, and the part of me that still wanted to protect my son from embarrassment. They were not planning a conversation. They were planning leverage. For a few seconds, I felt something hot move through me. Not rage exactly. Rage makes a man want to throw something. This made me steady. Ava sent another message. "Please don't tell Mom I sent it." I didn't mean to. I typed back, "You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. Thank you for being honest." Then I walked to the den and turned on the printer. The pages came out warm. Black words on white paper. Plain enough to look harmless, they were not harmless. I slid them into the blue folder behind Nora Whitcomb's card. I did not call Travis, I did not warn Brooke. Now I knew the conversation they wanted, not in my kitchen, not on Helen's table, and I knew exactly where they would not be having it. Travis and Brooke came over the Sunday before Thanksgiving. I saw their SUV roll into the driveway. Brooke got out first, carrying a canvas tote and a white folder. Travis followed with both hands shoved into his jacket pockets, shoulders high against the cold. He looked like a man walking toward a problem he had already decided belonged to someone else. For a moment, I considered not opening the door. Then I heard Helen's voice from 20 years of marriage. "Open the thing, Hank. Trouble gets worse when men pretend not to see it." So, I opened it. "Hey, Dad," Travis said, leaning in for the kind of quick hug that lets a man avoid looking at you too long. Brooke smiled past my shoulder into the dining room. "Hi, Hank. I brought the updated layout. I think if we shift the table toward the window, the photos will have better depth." "Depth," I said. She laughed softly. "You know what I mean. I just want the day to look warm." My eyes moved to the hallway wall, where Helen's picture hung in the silver frame. Warm had lived in that house before Brooke started arranging it. They stepped inside before I invited them. A habit I noticed now because I had stopped pretending not to. We sat at the kitchen table. My blue folder was not there. I had locked it in the desk drawer upstairs. I wanted this conversation bare. No papers, no lawyer's card, no proof yet. Just my son, his wife, and the truth that they thought I was too old to name. Brooke started with the dishes. "The rented plates are confirmed," she said. "They'll make everything cleaner visually. And if we move Helen's hutch into the garage just for the day, we'll have space for the dessert table." "Helen's hutch stays where it is." Her smile tightened. "Of course, we can revisit it." Travis cleared his throat. "Let's not overwhelm Dad." That almost made me laugh. I was not overwhelmed. I was being handled. He leaned forward, elbows on the table I had built. "Dad, I know you've been touchy about Thanksgiving." "Touchy? You've had a lot on you. We get that. That's why I think we should take care of the emergency paperwork before Thursday. Nothing dramatic, just practical. If you sign now, we can all relax and enjoy the holiday." "Sign what?" "Basic authorization, house access, medical stuff. Things families should have settled." Brooke placed her hand over his. "It's about protecting you, Hank." There it was. Dressed in a clean shirt, I looked at Travis. "Did you ask me if I wanted Thanksgiving here?" He blinked. "Dad, it's what we always do." That wasn't my question. His jaw worked once. "Everybody expects it, you know that. And honestly, you like hosting. You just get stubborn when you feel cornered." I thought of the printed text in my blue folder. "Dad won't make a scene on Thanksgiving." "Being used to my house," I said, "is not the same as being welcome in it." Brooke's eyes hardened for half a second before the smile returned. "No one is using you." I stood and walked to the door. "Then, you should have asked like guests." Travis stared at me. He still did not understand. He would. Thanksgiving morning came in hard and gray. The kind of Pittsburgh cold that makes every porch rail shine with frost by then. My house was dark, locked, and cooling. The thermostat was turned down, the curtains were drawn. The garage keypad had a new code no one else knew. Helen's hutch stayed against the dining room wall, exactly where she had wanted it. The blue folder was not in my desk drawer anymore. It was in my carry-on. So was Helen's walnut carving board, wrapped in 2 flannel shirts and tucked between my socks and a worn paperback. I had been half afraid airport security would ask why an old man was carrying a cutting board across the Atlantic. Nobody did. Maybe the world is full of people trying to bring pieces of home somewhere safer. My plane landed in Dublin after sunrise. I was tired in that hollow way travel makes you. But when I stepped outside and the damp air hit my face, I stood still for a moment. Taxis rolled past. A bus hissed at the curb, somewhere close. Coffee was being poured and bread toasted for people who did not know my name. Nobody needed me to carve anything. Back home, Travis pulled into my driveway a little before 9. Mr. Salazar told me later he arrived fast, like a man who expected the world to move aside. Brooke was with him. Their SUV was packed with folding chairs, grocery bags, flowers, tablecloths still in plastic, and rented dishes she thought would make my dining room look clean. Travis went to the garage first. The code failed. He tried it again. Then he went to the side door with his key. That failed too. The front door did not open either. By then Brooke had her phone out, probably checking group chat, probably wondering how to explain 31 people and no house. The knocking started after that. Mr. Salazar waited until the third call to me went unanswered. Then he crossed the lawn in his winter coat, carrying the sealed envelope I had left with him. Travis was on my porch, phone pressed to his ear, face tight. "Do you know where my dad is?" he asked. Mr. Salazar handed him the envelope. "He asked me to give you this." The letter inside was only half a page. "Travis, no Thanksgiving gathering was approved at my home. No one has permission to enter, use, rearrange, or host anything in my house without my direct consent. Do not use old keys, old codes, family pressure, or public embarrassment as a substitute for permission. Any conversation about my home, medical decisions, or legal documents will go through Nora Whitcomb from this point forward. Dad." Behind it was Nora's formal notice. It stated, in language no one could dress up as misunderstanding, that Travis's prior power of attorney had been revoked, that he had no authority over my property, and that unauthorized entry would not be treated as a family matter. No shouting, no threat, just a locked door, and the truth. My phone rang while I was sitting at a small cafe table near a window beaded with rain. Helen's board was upstairs in the room I had rented, safe on the wooden table beside the guidebook. I answered on the fourth ring. "Dad," Travis said, breathless and furious. "Where are you?" I looked across the street at brick buildings wet with morning light. "Dublin." Silence. "What do you mean?" "Dublin. I mean Ireland. People are coming. Brooke has food in the car. We have family driving in from Ohio. What am I supposed to tell them?" "The truth." He laughed once, sharp and ugly. "You picked today to teach me a lesson." "No," I said. "You picked today because you thought I wouldn't." His breathing changed. "Dad, this is embarrassing." "No, Travis. This is you feeling embarrassed." Another silence opened, longer this time. I let him stand in it. For one, he could not hand it to me to carry. Then, I said the thing I had crossed an ocean to earn. "You reserved my house without asking. I reserved my life without apologizing." He did not answer. Around me, cups clinked, a woman laughed, and rain slid down the window. For the first time in years, Thanksgiving did not smell like duty. It smelled like coffee, wet stone, and freedom. The first voicemail came before my coffee cooled. Travis sounded angry enough to make himself brave. He said I had humiliated him. 31 people were asking questions. Brooke had planned a beautiful holiday, and I had ruined it with a stunt, as if my locked door had been a performance and not the first honest answer I had given my family in years. The second voicemail came 40 minutes later. His voice was lower, still hard, but less certain. He said Brooke had only tried to help. He said everyone knew I had been different since Helen died. He said nobody wanted to take anything from me. By the third message, he sounded confused. "Dad, I don't understand why you went this far." I sat in that Dublin cafe and listened to the silence after his words. That was the part I believed. He did not understand. To Travis, the problem began that morning on my porch. To me, it had begun years earlier, with one box in my garage, one unpaid loan, one holiday I hosted while grieving, one key used like a right instead of a privilege. I did not call him back. A father's hand reaches for the phone before his mind catches up. Some part of me still wanted to rescue him from embarrassment, still wanted to say, "All right, son. Bring them in. I'll figure something out." That instinct had fed the machine. It taught him that my discomfort could always be traded for his relief. So I set the phone face down. Then I went upstairs and unwrapped Helen's walnut board. I placed it on the table by the window. Rain streaked the glass. The board looked strange there at first, dark and American and scarred by decades of my knife. Then the late light touched the walnut, and the old marks warmed like they had been waiting. I did not have turkey, gravy, or 3 pies. I had beef stew from a pub downstairs, brown bread, and cake wrapped in wax paper. I set one plate, one spoon, one napkin. No one asked where the serving dishes were. No one complained that the potatoes were late. No one told me the room would photograph better if I moved my dead wife's picture. I opened Helen's card again. To my stubborn man, who has spent his whole life fixing what everyone else breaks, one day, I am taking you somewhere nobody asks you to repair, carry, carve, or pay for anything. For a minute, I could almost hear her saying it with that smile in her voice. I put my hand flat on the board and said, "You were right, I did have to learn." The next morning, I walked until my knees complained. I saw streets Helen had circled, listened to music through a pub door, and stood near the river. I was lonely sometimes. Freedom can feel cold at first when you have spent years mistaking pressure for company. But the cold was clean. Back home, the story changed. Relatives called Travis, then each other, then me. Most went to voicemail. People asked if I had been sick, if I had forgotten, if there had been some misunderstanding. Then one cousin asked the only question that mattered. "Did Travis actually ask you?" I saved that voicemail. Ava texted me that night. "Grandpa, I'm sorry, I didn't know they hadn't asked. Mom said you were okay with it." I wrote back, "You are not responsible for grown people's choices. I love you." She sent a picture of the family eating takeout around Travis's kitchen island. Nobody looked festive. I laughed once, quietly. They had survived the disaster of cooking for themselves. 2 weeks later, I came home. The house was quiet when I opened the door. For a second, the old grief stepped forward. Helen's coat was not on the hook. Her voice did not call from the kitchen. The silence had not changed. I had. Quiet no longer felt like proof that I had been abandoned. It felt like ownership. My floor, my walls, my table, my time. The locks were still new. The blue folder went back into my desk. Nora handled Travis's messages. I told her I would speak to him when he was ready to talk to me as his father. Not as an obstacle between him and a house. That conversation did not happen quickly. First came defensiveness. Then weeks of silence. Then shorter texts about Ava. I answered those. I did not punish my granddaughter for her parents' choices. When Travis finally called, his voice sounded smaller than I remembered. He did not confess everything. He did not fall apart. He did not become a different man because one Thanksgiving went wrong. But after a long silence, he said, "I should have asked you." I closed my eyes. It was not enough to fix what had been damaged, but it was enough to be a beginning. That winter, I ate more dinners alone than I ever had before. And somehow, I felt less invisible. Helen's picture stayed on the wall. Her hutch stayed in the dining room. The walnut board went back to its place, not waiting for a crowd, not waiting to be approved for photographs. A full house is not always a loving house. A crowded table does not mean a man is honored. Sometimes the loneliest chair in the world is the one at the head of the table, where everyone eats what you provided and no one asks what it cost. I still love my son. That did not stop when he disappointed me. A father's love is stubborn. It survives anger, distance, and the shock of seeing your child become someone who can hurt you. But love is not a deed. It is not a key. It is not a signature, a holiday assignment, or permission to walk into a man's life and rearrange it because he has been generous before. My house still holds my family's history. It just no longer belongs to their expectations. Being a father means giving your children roots. It does not mean letting them cut yours out of the ground.